Good morning, students. In the previous class, we have discussed about the characteristics feature of living beings. Now today, we'll try to add more some characteristic features of living beings. So, when it comes to human beings, it is all the more difficult to define the living state. So, whenever we talk about human beings, it is very much difficult to define that how we can define the living state. We observe patients lying in coma in hospitals virtually supported by machines which replace heart and lungs. The patient is otherwise brain dead. The patient has no self consciousness. Are such patients who never come back to normal life are living or non-living. So here a question mark has been arised that what do we can consider about those who are in that critical situations, whether they are living or non-living. So in higher classes we'll come to know that all living phenomena are due to underlying interactions. So whatever the living features do we observe that are due to certain interactions taking place within their bodies. Properties of tissues are not present in the constituent cells but arise as a result of interactions among the constituent cells. So we know tissues, they are group of cells having similar structure and function. They have aggregated together to form a unique structure that do we call as tissues, and the property of tissues would not be present in the constituent cell. For example, if we consider blood, it is an example of tissue, and the property of blood, it would not maybe present within its constituent cells. For example, different cells are present within it, RBC, WBC or platelets. We cannot say that the RBC is having all the property of the blood, but blood, it is having all the properties whatever the constituents it is having within it. So similarly, properties of cellular organelles are not present in the molecular constituents of the organelle but arise as a result of interactions among the molecular components comprising the organelle. So whatever the properties of cellular organelles, they are not present in the molecular constituents of the organelle. So whatever, if we consider, suppose we consider the about the system, may that we consider about the digestive system, whatever the property of the digestive system is having, that the entire property may not be present within the stomach. So obviously, a group of organs, they have assembled together to perform a unique, a particular function. So that do we call it as a system. So just like we have to understand that the properties of cellular organelles, they are not present in the molecular constituents of the organelle but arise as a result of interactions among the molecular components comprising the organelle. These interactions result in emergent properties at a higher level of organization, and this phenomenon is true in the hierarchy of organizational organization. So this phenomenon is true in the hierarchy of organizational complexity at all levels. So therefore, we can say that living organisms are self-replicating, evolving, and self-regulating interactive systems capable of responding to external stimuli. So we can say, we can conclude that life forms, they are specific, they are self-replicating, they are able to replicate themselves, evolve in the better environmental conditions whenever they will get, they try to evolve, and they self-regulate the interactive systems of responding to external stimuli. So, biology is the story of life on Earth. So, biology is the story of evolution of living organisms on Earth. So, all living organisms, present, past, and future, are linked to one another by the sharing of the common genetic material but to varying degrees. So, all life forms present now today, or they have become extinct, or maybe arising in due course of time, maybe in due course of evolution process, they are linked to one another by the sharing of the common genetic material, but that the material would be varying. They may be varying to different aspects, different degrees. They may be showing the variation regarding their genetic material, the genetic setup, their cellular organization, their different components, their different structural and functional behavior. So, we'll go through certain terminologies which we have to study in the chapter. The first one is systematics. What is systematics? It has been derived from the Latin word systema, meanings order or sequence. Many of the times we use the word system in our daily usage. So just the normal meaning it is having means in order or in sequence, that particular material is in particular sequence. So it is the branch of science which deals with the arrangement of diverse organisms in an organized plan according to the distinct or unique features of the organisms. So systematics, it is a special branch within that. It is having the arrangement of diverse organisms in an organized plan way according to their unique features present within the living forms. The systematics, what does it require? It requires identification, means assigning the organism to a particular group, means the organism has been identified and assigned to a particular group. Second, it includes classification, that is arrangement of organisms into groups, means the individual living being has been classified or has been arranged in which group. Third one is nomenclature, that is naming the organism, whatever is the name of the organism. And fourth one is the taxonomy, means framing rules for classification. So we'll discuss about the first, that is identification. Identification, from the name, it refers to the assigning of an organism to a particular taxonomic group. A study is carried out to recognize the characteristic features of various parts of an organism, and those features are compared with those of the already known species to determine their similarities and differences. So, how they are identified? Just we may correlate with the symptoms of the diseases and the signs of the diseases. Just like do the physicians, they match the symptoms with the signs of the diseases and they identify the patient is suffering from such and such disease. So just like in the identification, what we do, that it recognizes the unique characteristic features of various parts of an organism, and those features are then compared with the already known species to determine whether they are showing similarities or they are showing some dissimilarities within themselves. Second one is classification. Classification is the art of identifying distinctive or distinctions among organisms and placing them into groups which reflect their most significant features and relationship. So, classification is that art through which the living being is being identified through distinctive characteristic features by placing them into certain groups and which reflects their most significant features and relationships. The purpose of biological classification is to organize the vast number of known organisms into categories which could be named, remembered, and studied. So, biological classification has two functions. What are those? First, to recognize and describe as completely as possible the basic taxonomic units or species. And second, to devise a way of grouping these units on the basis of their resemblances and relationships. So next, what are the advantages of classification? First, it makes the study of such a variety of organisms easier, scientific, systematic, and convenient. Second, it helps us to identify organisms and also to recognize those already classified. Third, it helps in understanding the interrelationships among the different groups of the organisms. Fourth, the study of one or few representatives of every group will give us an idea of the other forms in that group, as it is not possible to study each of them individually. So, by classifying the organism, if we know the characteristic feature of that particular group, we can ascertain if any other species or life form belongs to that same group. That group will have the same basic features as that do we have studied. It will share among between them. It gives an idea about the organisms that are not present in one's place. Sixth, it reflects the evolutionary trends among organisms. So it reflects that how do the evolutionary processes occurred within the planet and how do the life forms they are correlated to each other with that evolutionary processes. Next, seventh point, it enables the scientist to interpret the structures of fossil organisms. So also it helps the scientist to interpret, to analyze the structures of the fossil organisms and how do they were having certain types of specific features which are present within them and why do they have become extinct. Till so far here, thank you. Have a nice day.